Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Se Vuelve Podcast. My name is Monica, and I want to thank you for being here. For this week's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about my studied abroad journey. And I want to say this, and I'm already laughing because I want to thank me, and that's to quote Snoop Dogg. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when I was talking to my friend Aaliyah in her episode about her story abroad journey or adventure, I was kind of telling her that, for me it was very easy in this, right? And then I went back and I looked at the emails and I'm looking over stuff and I'm like, it wasn't easy. Like the idea of what I thought it was, it wasn't easy. There was a couple or more than a couple bumps in the road. So then I'll start with how this process kind of started. This was around the winter of 2017. I had Aaliyah in my class, but I also met another person that was from the same university. The name is Salford. That I think I saw across the halls. I don't think I had classes with this person. Her name was Rachel, but I ended up seeing either she came in after like my class, like or something like that, right? But I saw her in the hallways, and I remember like hearing her accent and kind of being like, "Oh, you're from England, you know?" So we would talk every once in a while. She kind of told me to attend a study abroad fair that my university was having. I'll start off by saying this though. I've always had dreamt about going abroad, and specifically, I was obsessed as a kid with Harry Potter and I loved England. When I maybe thought that I could have an opportunity to study over there, I was kind of excited. So I remember going to the study abroad fair. I saw Rachel there because she was kind of like representing her university, and we kind of talked. And she was telling me like, yeah, there's like a television department there, and she really sold it to me because she was talking about specifically how this university had its own kind of like campus for the TV department there. So that was kind of like, oh, maybe I could study abroad, right? So then the next kind of process was that applied for this. And that was kind of like the simple part. You did this process, submitted like, your transcripts, like why you want to do this. Simple. You just kind of waited for the approval. Essentially, I ended up getting approved, but I guess there was another process where the like study abroad university had to approve you. So that was quite a process. Going back through my emails, I remember like kind of emailing with our study abroad people and just being like, "Hey, like when are we going to hear something? This, that, right?" We ended up finding out that I think the university in England was on holiday or on break. But in regards to like my visa, I think I applied for it online, but I just remember when getting my visa kind of when I got into England and they just kind of asked me like a couple questions. I will say that once we got communication with the university out there, they did tell us like make sure that for like the housing or the dorms or whatever you want to call it, if you're looking for like apartments or something, do not do that until you get there. I was planning at that point. I was planning to stay at the dorms, and we were kind of still waiting for communication for all that. So I ended up getting approved, obviously through both ends, and we were just always like always waiting for the other university. Around this time, also things with FAFSA. I was one of those people that applied and received FAFSA, and they were being really really weird. They weren't approving things at that time. They're like trying to determine if there's going to be like the budget for this, and that was something that was very anxiety driven for me because I depended on that. I was also depending on that for my study abroad semester. Unlike Aaliyah, because I remember Aaliyah saying that, she had approved this, that, like, one of the things was that there was a certain amount of money in her bank account. That was like not a thing for the university over there. I felt like my university, so Columbia College Chicago, really prepared and were there for their study abroad students. I don't know if I can say that for the university that I went to. Luckily for the FAFSA, we ended up getting an email that they were gonna approve the budget. So I ended up getting a good chunk of money that was gonna be paid towards me. I think it was gonna be like a because I that semester had already passed, so they were gonna give me money. That money that I was gonna end up using for my study abroad semester. Now, the fall of 2017, mind you, I'm already approved. I think by that point I already had a flight. I was supposed to leave on September 10th. That would have gotten me there like 2 or 3 weeks before school started. And we get an email in August, like I said, a month before, that like there was no dorm housing. I remember like reaching out to our study abroad people and just being like, what do you mean, like we're supposed to have availability for dorm room? They just told us that they don't have any dorm rooms for us. Like, what are we going to do? Obviously, like I had mentioned before, they had told us like don't pay for anything when it comes to like apartments or something, right? Don't pay for that before you arrive here because there's a potential that people can be like trying to scam you. So I just remember being like, what do we do? What do we do? So we ended up getting communication from the study abroad people in Salford. So the university that I ended up attending was Salford University, and that's kind of in Salford slash like Manchester area. Once our study abroad people found out that we were emailed and they told us we don't have any more housing or dorm room housing for you guys, they kind of got involved with that. And what came from that was that they told us we're going to be having a study abroad housing fair. So we're going to have you guys attend that. I ended up paying for a hostel. You can get your own room. It's a little bit more money, but what it is, it's that it's kind of like, I would say, like a cheaper hotel kind of dorm, almost like a dorm room situation, is where you share a room. And specifically for mine, I think there was like four like beds, like what do you call it, bunk beds, that's the word I'm trying to use, bunk beds. And potentially you could have up to four people in that bedroom. Specifically for female, that's the one that I ended up choosing. So I paid for that, and I'm ready to go now come September, right? I had been packed for a while, and I will say this and I'm laughing because it's comical, it's not funny, but this is the reason, this experience is the reason why I now have like ongoing beef with American Airlines. So it's my very first time flying with American Airlines, September 10th. And my flight was delayed multiple times in that night. I was supposed to leave around 7 p.m. my time. By the time they got us on the airplane, it was like around 11 p.m. or midnight. We were on the airplane, we're like we're waiting. And all of a sudden on the announcement, it comes on that there is no flight crew. We have to deplane and get rescheduled on a different flight. We're all waiting. People are on the phone. People are waiting in line. And I'm texting my family and I'm texting my best friend. Essentially, what ends up happening is that I end up getting rescheduled for a flight on September 11th. And then my best friend picks me up with her mom. They did me that favor. Oh my gosh. Because our option was to stay at a hotel at the airport. And my best friend said that. She's like, you would have been more comfortable if you just came back home. And I did. I'm rescheduled for, like I said, a flight the next day around the same time. I kept looking at the website to make sure that the flight was still on or didn't get canceled, right? So then I arrive, I get past security, and then my flight gets delayed again. So we had a little bit of a repeat of the day before with American Airlines. Our flight got delayed once again, like a couple hours. And then I think around 11 or 12, like our flight finally like kind of like took off. From that flight, I was in like a row with three people, and it wasn't supposed to be like that. Mind you, I had paid for my seat too. And I was supposed to be in like a two people row or whatever, right? But since unfortunately the day before we had been canceled, there was a lot of people from that flight that had been rescheduled to this one. So we were a little bit packed, like packed sardines, I was gonna say. But essentially, we ended up flying out. I arrived like later than I was supposed to. And I arrived in Manchester, the Manchester airport. I remember getting off the plane, going through kind of like, what do you call it, like immigration. This was supposed to be to get my visa, right? So you give them your passport, they ask you like, what are you doing here? And I told them, I'm studying abroad. I'm going to be here until, I think at that point I was like there till like January. And I obviously had a returning flight, so I had that, and it was simple just to get like my stamp. So then I get through that whole process, get my luggage, get in a cab, and then get dropped off at my hostel. And I check in. I remember like getting into my room and there was another girl there. And she was like, "Oh, I'm about to go out." Like, and it wasn't like late at night. It was, or at least that I remember. I know it was midday or early in the day. I don't remember now. And she was going to go out somewhere. I don't know if she was going to go like to go get dinner or something or whatever. And she'd like ask me to come along or whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm like, fine, this, and that, right? I remember her leaving, like that door, like shutting. And then me fucking bawling my eyes out. I was so overwhelmed. Mind you, sleep deprived because you can't really sleep that well on the airplane. So sleep deprived on top of about like jet lag, right? And I just remember crying. I think I ended up taking a shower and just kind of like relaxing or whatever. That was, I don't know if I've ever told anybody that. It was rough. And then on top of it, like going there and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. Like, am I going to find housing? What am I going to do? Yeah, I just kind of stayed in and, ate. I think the place sold like a little bit of like sandwiches. In a sandwich had like, us like Americans, right? We well, not, I don't anymore, but usually have a sandwich with like mayo and stuff, right? And I remember getting a sandwich and it was like, I think, like, I don't know if it was like a ham and cucumber or something. And my sandwich had like butter on it. And I'm like, where's like the mayo? And the thing is, it's like, that's an American thing. There is no mayo. No, it's funny because I do eat my sandwiches like that. Sorry, ran for the random side note. But anyway, I just kind of relaxed and I think I remember like trying to fall asleep, or I know I did fall asleep at like 9 o'clock because I was tired, and then like waking up in the middle of the night because obviously like 9 p.m. over there is like 3 p.m. over here. So yeah, I just kept like waking up in the middle of the night. While I was there, I ended up emailing an advisor that they had kind of like assigned for me. So I met with him and I told him I'm like, I arrived because the thing was that I had to like kind of get my classes assigned to me still. So we met and the thing about that is like I have to take certain classes that kind of corresponded with my Columbia classes because at that point at Columbia, I was solely taking television courses. There were some classes that were like mandatory for me to take. So I was talking with him, and initially beforehand, they were trying to put me in almost like these. I think it was like first year classes or second year classes. I don't remember now, but a lot of those classes I had already kind of taken at Columbia. I really had to fight for myself. Like I remember reading an email. This is gonna sound so bad. And just kind of saying, because talking with this person and saying and being like, we want you to kind of take these. And I said, listen, your like requirements are not my requirements. I'm like, there's certain things that I have to do for my school. So essentially it was like, without saying this in like in this way, I was like, I can kind of do whatever I want because I'm not a part of your university in that sense. So I don't have to follow the same guidelines as your students. Well, it went actually pretty well because I did advocate for myself. And essentially by that point was that I ended up taking advanced script writing, which correlated with a class at Columbia, transmedia story worlds, which was kind of similar to another class that we had at Columbia as well. And then the odd one out was British TV fictions. And let me tell you, I was told by Rachel that the teacher for that class was phenomenal. And I know that I believe at the time he was teaching maybe like two classes, a different one and then this one. So I knew she was like, you need to take a class by this teacher because he's probably the best teacher that we have at this university. So I really fought, and the thing, he was so sweet. He was so sweet because my advisor was like, she's really fighting, and he was like, absolutely, I will have her. I was like, okay, thank you. And let me tell you, that was my favorite class that semester, and I think that was a class that I think I did the best. Like, I had the best grade in that class. Oh man, y'all, this is like really, nostalgia is making like my heart happy. Just like so far remembering all this, especially because I one of the best things about my time in Manchester or Salford was the education. I really, really, really enjoyed my time there. So then that was Wednesday. Come Thursday, I told you all that we had signed up like for a study abroad housing fair. I go to the university, and there's essentially another guy that's from my university, Columbia College Chicago, a guy from Finland, and then another, I don't remember her, but she was like a European girl. I don't know if she was French or if she was from like a different European country. And essentially, I think we were kind of like looking at stuff, but they ended up taking us to like, I remember at least two locations, because the one location I remember going, all I remember, it was dark and cluttered, and I was like, I cannot live here. So then these people take us, and we go to this little gated community, and it was called Waterside Village. We visit one place for sure that was like kind of already fixed up, right? And then we get taken to another location, and they're like, that one was currently like I'm gonna say under construction. They were replacing carpets, they were doing painting, they were fixing any like little things like here and there, right? And that was where I lived, which was 3 Gemini Road. And I remember going with those four individuals, like I said, the guy from my university, the Finnish guy, and then the European girl. And we were walking this house, and they were like, "This is essentially what would be yours." And one of the things that I remember from that was that we went to the top of the stairs, and the room that ended up being like my room, right? That room was filled with furniture, like a ton of furniture that you could like literally like only take like one step in, and that's it. And I remember out of the other three individuals that were there with me, I was the only one that took a step in. And this was key, because when I stepped in, this room was the biggest room in that house. And none of the other three individuals saw that, but I did. And I said, I'm like, if this is going to be my place, this is going to be my room. So we go down, we're like talking with I'm talking with the other three individuals, and the girl was just kind of, I don't know, kind of saying something, but kind of like, I don't know. I had made a decision, and so the two other guys, that we were going to take this place, and we were like, we're going to take it. So what our university told us though was that we needed to have the university people look over the contract. When I was looking at my emails, I was over here like, taking the lead, sending like these emails to my university, speaking on behalf of like, at that point was the three of us, because come to find out, that girl was like, forget this, I'm not staying here with these like three other people. So what ended up happening was that the girl dropped out. It was me and these two guys, the Finnish guy, the guy from my university. And then we ended up finding out that there was another individual from my university, another guy, who needed housing. So then I'm over here, manager Monica, whatever you want to call me, and literally communicating with, like I said, our university in Chicago, the university in Manchester, Salford, and then also with this other individual, because He's arriving a little bit later in the next week. And mind you, they had told us, they were like, we need you, like, we need to know because there's going to be other people that are interested, and this stuff fills out. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? This place was perfect because it was spacious. There was 4 bedrooms. We had a bathroom, and then we had a shower room. We had like a decent sized kitchen, and we had like a decent sized living room and dining room. So this was like a little townhouse, which was nicer than like kind of like living in a dorm. So we definitely wanted this place as soon as possible. But we ended up getting this place. We signed for it on Friday. Our university said like, this is good. Like, the contract is good. There's nothing weird about it, So we signed it on Friday. Like I said, I was communicating with the other person that was arriving late, sending him and having him send me like, a filled application and his passport information and this and that, right? So we ended up getting the okay that this house is going to be ready for us on Monday, the following Monday. I think my hostel stay was only supposed to be till, I think I had only booked till like Thursday. So I had to extend my stay on Monday. We were all good to go. We show up at the place. I think we ended up paying for I ended up paying for rent for September till January. So did the other two individuals. And then the third person, like I said, the third person arrived later on. But then if you didn't catch it, I ended up living with 3 guys. That was in the plan. The plan was supposed to have like 2 girls, 2 guys, but that's kind of how it happened. I remember I told my mom, and my mom was like not happy. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? I had to find a place to stay that Monday. We signed with our luggage, right? With our luggage next to us. And then we like move into the house. I move into my room. So going into the townhouse, kitchen was on the left side. There was a bedroom that was like right when you went in, right on the right. And then it was next to the shower. And then upstairs, second floor, there was my bedroom, which was next to the toilet room with a bathtub. And then next to my bedroom was a another person's bedroom, and then there was like across his was like a tiny, I mean like tiny little bedroom. Like, it was I'm not lying, it was barely enough like for the bed. And I felt bad. I really felt bad. But as the only girl there, I was like, you know what? If I can have the biggest bedroom, I will be happy. For the most part, I got along with my flatmates. The only thing that there were some things like responsibilities. Like, I found myself like doing a lot of, like, I cleaned the kitchen a lot because I did spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Like, I cooked I'm one of those people that doesn't really go out to eat. So I was making a lot of like my meals. I was shopping at Aldi and Tesco. That was like 2 places that I ended up finding, which was Aldi had like the best produce, man. It was cheap, it had the best produce. Oh, something that I didn't mention was that when we show up to this place, it was there's like nothing there. It was you essentially were just getting the house, right? So on like the day that we ended up moving in, we dropped off our luggage, and then we went to one of the stores. Now I don't remember what the store name is called, but we went to a store where they were like they sold what it reminded me of was kind of a mixture of like because it was small, like a Walgreens kind of sort of. We had to purchase like, and over there, right, they have a duvet cover, and that was like a first thing. So I had a duvet and a duvet cover. Had to buy pillows. Had to buy stuff for the kitchen. I remember one of the roommates was like, "I'm gonna buy a kettle." I'm like, that made sense when because tea drinkers, obviously like stuff. Oh, I think we bought like like pots and pans, and because once again we weren't giving anything, so we had to like we ended up splitting all that stuff that was like for the house or for us to share. We ended up splitting, but obviously like our bedding and stuff, that was all up to us. Yeah, it was so interesting. I ended up going out there about like almost, I think 2 weeks before, 2 to 3 weeks before classes started. It was nice that I had plenty of time to, to kind of get settled. So I remember signing up, like having to go. I don't remember what it was. Was it to get a roster or what was it? But we had a little bit of a ongoing trouble, man. There was a little thing bumps, like I said, bumps and roads that was not necessarily like because of us. It was or my university. It was mostly like the university out there. Um, so that happened, and then the study abroad department ended up having it was a dinner, a gathering, whatever you want to call it, and I remember like being there, and I don't know, I really connected with there was a friend that I met. He was from France, and we ended up like hanging out for the remainder of the time that I was there. I also felt very comfortable with like the Spaniards there. I started speaking to them in Spanish. They're like, "Oh my god, are you from Spain?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, I would always say I'm from the U.S. I'm Mexican, and essentially, I didn't go out a lot, but I did go out with the study abroad like students, and they, like I said, I very much felt comfortable with them. So first day of school was Monday, September 25th, and that class was for the British TV fictions class. And I remember, oh my gosh, because I'm like, it's funny because Aaliyah was like, I felt so uncomfortable because Sarah did this, and I'm like, and then I remember I was like, the same thing happened to me. So I show up early, like, because I'm always like an early person, right? I show up early, and I'm sitting in class, and you know, Dr. Hewitt, he like introduces me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's gonna have an eye on me. But it was really it was good. Like I said, I ended up loving his class. Actually, funny enough, I ended up going to a book signing. He had released a book, and I went to his book signing. He invited the class, and I think only two people went. Me and this other lady went, and I remember like when I showed up there, I was like sitting outside, just kind of being like, "Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious." And he saw me, and he like lit up, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, please!" He's like, "Come in," and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Because I'm trying to be like incognito. And once again, I don't really like attention. So I come in, there's other people that I think his like friends and family came out and stuff like that, or friends or colleagues, whatever you want to call them. And then I ended up seeing somebody from my class there. Ended up like buying his book, and I think what he read in there was that something in the lines of like, by you reading this book, may you get a first. And a first is like kind of like in like a high grade, an A, whatever you want to call it. And I remember the lady that I ended up kind of like crashing into there, being like, he didn't write that about me. I was like, I don't know. And that was kind of like the very first day that I went out, because once again, oh, I know a lot of people and a lot of my friends that are going to listen to this, and they know I'm kind of shy. I am an introverted person. I like to say I'm an extroverted introvert. And the thing is, it's like once I'm comfortable with people, yeah, I'll show myself or whatever, right? So I really kept to myself and stayed in. So that day, this lady, her name was Anne Marie. She's like, "Do you want to come out with me?" So I was like, "Sure, why not?" So we went to this charity event, and I had totally forgotten about this, but we went to this charity event, and I don't remember what the charity it was, but her daughter was there, and then her daughter's like best friend was there as well. And I just remember this charity event was to have like a dinner, like I don't know if it was like a plated dinner or what it was, but I just remember ended up getting in the kitchen and like helping cook. And they were like making like rice, and then I don't remember what other dish they made. But I just remember kind of like helping out with that, and then like being there. And then this is really random, but one of the things that they ended up like kind of raffling or whatever you want to call it was Paloma Faith tickets. I was like, I don't know who that is. And they're like, you don't know who that is? And I was like, no, And now I know who she is because she has that song and it became really like famous on TikTok. The one that goes like, I'm not gonna sing it. I want to sing it, but I'm not a singer. But the one that goes like, only only love can hurt like this. So yeah, they were raffling those tickets. Now I know who Paloma Faith is. So that night after the charity event, it was kind of like the first night that I ever went out. And we went to a karaoke place, kind of like in Manchester. And it was, I mean, I didn't sing because I'm kind of shy, but it was just fun to be able to go out with it was the lady, her daughter, her best friend, and yeah, I think that was the first, like I said, went out. I think I got home at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I remember like, I think like one of my, I was gonna say roommate, but it's not roommate, it's flatmate. My flatmate saying like, oh yeah, you went out or something like that. And I was like, yeah. Another outing that I had was I ended up going to go see this show called Rip It Up. And a reason why I went was because one of the guys of one of my favorite bands, The Wanted, was in this like show. And I just remember I saw it in Manchester. It was so beautiful. And that theme was for like 50s music. And I kind of grew up with like 50s music because my godparents, specifically my godmother, was a big 50s music fan. And when I saw it, I remember like I think I had tears in my eyes. It was so good. I ended up seeing it a couple more times, but in different cities. I think I went to Birmingham and Cheltenham. I know it's not the Brits are gonna freaking hate me, man. They're like, why do you say it like that? Like, I literally every single Cheltenham, and it's like they will say it like I think it's like Shilton, something like that. British people, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Um, so I did a little bit of traveling for that. Like I took like a couple train rides to go see those other two shows because I really really loved it. Another like kind of like core memory from my time in Manchester was that we had like a Thanksgiving dinner. I remember I kind of made mashed potatoes because that's like my thing, and the the other roommate that was from the U.S. he ended up making the turkey. And I remember like he like seasoned it and buttered it, and I was like, "Yo, we need a little bit more in this." Like I remember like I chopped up some veggies and put some veggies in like the cavity, and I was like, "This is for me." And then I think he had to go to class, so me and his girlfriend at the time, were kind of like stayed responsible for the dinner, and then I ended up inviting my friend. His name's Amin, and he's from France, to dinner. And it was freaking delicious. I accidentally pour a little bit too much pepper in the mashed potatoes. They were like, no, this is good. They literally they're like because mind you, we're like college students, so we're having like the basic of the basic, right? Well, at least not me, because your girl can cook, but they were making the basic of the basic meals, and they were like, this is the best meal I've had here. It was really really nice. So we're done with kind of like November, right? Come December, I think I'll say this, y'all. I kind of mentioned that flatmate responsibilities was something that I would bring it up from time to time, because those that know, I'm kind of a little bit of a clean freak. Not that it got like super messy, it just it kind of got like dusty, and people, when people live there, things get dirty, like the shower. Hello. So I just remember there was a little bit of not really, I don't know. I just was a little frustrated because I felt like I was cleaning all the time. Anyway, I'm gonna start in like early December, and essentially, I was supposed to take a trip the next day to Liverpool. The one thing was that there was in Manchester, I think there was like a study abroad office or something like that, right? And these people ended up doing kind of like little trips on the over the weekend and stuff. So my friend Amin was going. He kind of like convinced me to go, and we were going to be going the next day, but I was not feeling kind of like great the day before. And I was like, okay, I'm going to like stay in and just kind of like relax and stuff like that or whatever. And my flatmates decided that they were going to have like a pre-drinks at our place, our flat or whatever. And yeah. So it's supposed to, they're supposed to leave after a certain time, right? This pre-drink turned to like a full-blown like party, and I'm in my bedroom trying to like sleep because I have to be up early the next day to go to Liverpool or whatever. Mind you, once again, I'm not feeling good, and there's loud music. There's like, okay, we had like like I said, I told you guys that we had a townhouse, but it's not like it was like plenty of space for four people. Maybe not for maybe, I don't remember how many was it, somewhere between 30 to like 40, 50 people. And like I told you, the toilet was upstairs right next to my bedroom, and people are constantly going to the bathroom, going to like being in the hallway, being talking and stuff like that. And I just remember that there was a group of girls from Spain, and they were in the bathroom, and I don't know if one of them got too drunk or what happened. And they're talking, and obviously I understand them and stuff like that, and they're like frustrated because there's these guys that are like knocking at the door and stuff like that. And I literally got out of my bedroom in like my pajamas and pussy socks. And I, go in with the girls, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? What do you need? Like, this, and that. And then these guys are like obnoxiously like knocking on the door. And I'm like literally having to yell. And because I think they were not trying to go to the bathroom. I think they were like trying to come after the girls and stuff, or like come talk to them or whatever. And I literally was like, please go away. Like, I just kept saying like, you guys need to go away, da da da, this and that. And then I got like really frustrated. I was like, listen, I will kick you out of this house. Like, get away from. It was louder than how I'm saying it. But I was like, you guys need to should go. I'm like, stop. Like, this is unnecessary. Please go. I'm handling this. Um yeah. So the girl was kind of like hugging the toilet, and we were just kind of like waiting for her to like, and essentially they kind of like get up. So I remember going downstairs, and like my PJs essentially was a some long sleeve top, and then I feel it was like flannel bottoms, and then my fuzzy socks, and just like sitting there like talking and stuff. So I don't know if I was lied to. I'm laughing because this was supposed to be a pre-drinks. A pre-drinks is like you go, you have a couple drinks for like maybe an hour or something, right? And then you leave. But I felt like this was a whole party because they were there for a couple hours or whatever. The next day I got up early, I got ready. This organization, they ended up getting like a bus, and we bussed over to Liverpool. I got to walk around Liverpool. We went to a couple kind of like different museums. We went to, you know, the Christmas markets, because obviously this was around December, so we get to kind of like experience that. I ended up spending Christmas in England or Manchester, right? Obviously, people like, spent it with their families. I know for a fact that the guy from Finland, and I didn't know this at this time, I thought that the university or classes went through January. I guess the way that it works there is that I think your assignment is like due in January. You have to submit it by a date in January, but classes are done in early December. I didn't know this. I think I told you that I had a flight. My flight was returning sometime in like mid to early January. My flatmate that was from Finland decided to go back to like Finland because like I'm done. I'm heading back. And then essentially the people that were there was the two kind of like flatmates that were from the US that were from my university. But I mentioned the one had like a girlfriend that was, or girlfriend at the time, that was from Germany. And, he went to spend time with her family in Germany. And then the other, I think, flatmate was kind of like, I think he was traveling like around Manchester. I think his family had actually uh, had come over from, I don't remember where he was from now, but it was funny because I think he was like a study abroad student at my university, and then he got to study abroad. I don't know how that worked out. So I ended up essentially like kind of being alone for like a couple weeks, which, if I'm being really honest, was kind of like the best thing ever because I could I had the freedom to do what I want, and I knew that if I cleaned, like the place was going to stay cleaned and stuff, and I'd have to be like, trying to like get people to clean. I forgot to mention this because from that pre-drink party, whatever you want to call it, I don't know who, they broke our toilet. Somebody broke our toilet seat, and I'm having to email the people from the thing and hoping like we don't get charged for this. I just let me just tell you, I definitely was like, this is not my fault. I'm not taking accountability for this. Like, I was like, towards the end of my study abroad time, I was just, I don't know, kind of like at odds with my flatmates. Well, specifically with one, but yeah, I was at odds because it's like, yeah, you guys don't pick up. I mean, mind you, I know they're young and stuff like that, but like, and guys, like, y'all have to clean up. Like, come on. So I was kind of at like odds or whatever. But anyway, I ended up spending like kind of like Christmas by myself. I remember, I know one of my classmates was like, "Well, you can come spend it with us, or come spend Boxing Day with us." But I was like, "No, I think I ended up. I don't know if it was Christmas or if it was Boxing Day, but the study abroad. I don't know if it was them or a different organization, but luckily, I'm so grateful. There was these individuals that they stayed open, like they I don't think they celebrated the holiday, so they ended up throwing like a little get together, and there was like these different types of like foods and stuff. And I mean, I showed up, and I think maybe like one or two others showed up, and they were talking to us, and they were telling us, they're like, "Oh, please, we would appreciate a review." um and to be honest, I left them a really nice review because yes, like, it was the first time I've ever spent like the holidays without like my family and stuff, and to be in a completely different country where I didn't have like a lot of like friends, and I stayed in. So I was just very grateful for them because I got to do and spend time with these individuals. It made my time like, the holidays can be very like lonely, and to spend it with somebody was like very, very nice. And I will say this, that I remember like kind of like crying a lot. And I think that was kind of like the very first time that I understood, and I like, remembering then that I was like, this is like feeling lonely, and especially it's the worst like around the holidays. So just remembering that now is just, if I ever still feel lonely or whatever now, I should remember during that time, because during that time I genuinely, it was in a foreign country, and I didn't have many people. So I survived Christmas alone for my first time in a different country. So the next holiday was New Year's Eve. So my plan and what I wanted to do for New Year's Eve was that I wanted to go kind of like to downtown, maybe go to like a club, a bar or something, and just like kind of go out and spend it and see the fireworks and kind of get to experience that, because here in the US I don't really get to do that. I usually spend it with like my family. So I wanted to go out and I wanted to do something. But this was another friend that I actually ended up making when I went to the Liverpool trip. I met her, and I had told her, I'm like, "Oh, let's go do this." And then she was like, "Oh, well, I got invited to this to this to this party." So she was like, okay, how about you come to this like party with me, and then afterwards we'll go to like downtown Manchester and we'll celebrate like New Year's together. I'm like, cool. Or we'll ring in the New Year together. I'm like, okay. And that ended up not happening. So what ended up happening was, so I go to this party and at this house, and there's like little bits of foods and stuff, and she's there, and they're just like sitting there smoking weed, and I don't do that. And I just remember just kind of being offered and stuff like that, and I was like no, and there was like, mind you, this was in a little house or apartment or whatever, and like sitting there, kind of asked her like, hey, like, so we ended up ringing the new year there, ended up not going out. And then I just remember like going back. I think we took a taxi or an Uber together and get dropped off. I'm oh, you're gonna laugh at me. You guys are a little laugh at me. Mind you, all my flatmates and stuff were gone. And okay, so I arrive at my gate, my place, right? I walk to my, because it was a gated community. You got dropped off at like one gate, and then you just kind of walk to your place. I remember, please don't judge me. I remember getting in my flat, and at that entryway, once again, there's nobody there. I remember like stripping myself nude, naked, whatever you want to call it, and going upstairs, grabbing my stuff to shower, going downstairs to our shower room, showering, and then, you know, putting everything, all my clothes, my shoes, my Converse, everything into the washer and washing that. And my reasoning for this was because I was traveling back like the following week, and I was like, yo, I need to like make sure this stuff does not smell like this. I'm going to be flying out. My flight had a layover, and I was like, I can't go through customs and then like my stuff, So I was like scared. Even though I didn't do anything, but like my clothes, I was like afraid that, because we, like, once again, we were in this like tiny room, and I was like, I can't do it. So that's just like so funny. I originally was supposed to come back, I think, mid January, but I ended up changing my flight to like a week prior. I didn't say anything to my flatmates. Mind you, one of them, like I said, had already left, but the two that were still there, I didn't say anything. Kind of like my stuff, I ended up like kind of like gifting away to somebody else that was going to be staying there a little bit longer. She was like a neighbor because she lived across, and she was like, I'll like give away to charities or something, like I'll give this away to them, they won't go to waste or whatever. So she was going to take care of that for me. So then I ended up like packing up my stuff. I ended up like kind of like contacting the housing people, told them like I'm leaving this date. I was like, I took pictures, I specifically took pictures of my room, and I kind of talked to them, and I told them and it was funny because the one guy, I don't know if he was like a maintenance guy or he was like like a manager, one of the managers there. He told me, he's like, yeah, I know that you're not. He's like, I could tell because there was a couple times, because we were going to be moving out. There was other students that are going to be people that were going to be moving in. So during this time that we were living there, we had like a couple house like tours. The people got to see like the bedrooms and stuff like that, and mine was always pristine. The guy without, like, he just said it. He's like, I know. He's like, I see you. He's like, I know the kitchen is clean because I see you there all the time. I see you cleaning. Um, and he's like, and I've seen your stuff. So I was like, I'm not getting blamed for this. I'm not losing my deposit, because obviously we had to give like a deposit, right? I ended up flying out like a week early. The flight that I was supposed to leave on, and I'm trying to remember, I'm guessing it was British Airways. It had to be British Airways. Basically, my flight got delayed. I arrived, and they're like, yeah, your this flight is delayed. Your layover in I was going to have a layover in Philly. You won't make it. So they ended up changing me to a different one. I am going to like through Philly, and that was a nightmare. And this is the reason now I recommend, and I will say to everybody, do not ever, like, don't, please, if you can avoid it, have a layover from a foreign country to somewhere else, because going through Philly was a nightmare. Like customs and all that took forever. And then the bad thing was that, so I had to go through customs and I had to pick up my luggage, drop off my luggage, recheck in, right? And I'm like, I have to, like, my flight leaves in this amount of time. So we were waiting through through TSA, and there's a bunch of us and we're like, "Hey, we need to make this flight." And this was in the dead of winter, and they ended up taking us through this back way. And I'm thinking, "Oh, cool, we're gonna so dumb. They're gonna take us to the back way and we're gonna go through a gate." No, like they took us through a back way to go to another TSA line to still go through security. And I remember, like, I'm so tired. I'm like, by that point, by it's like, I had been up so late, and I was like, I do not want to stay in Philly. I just want to go back. I want to go back, to my to like my house or whatever. So we get through TSA, they go through our stuff, and then I'm like running to, like, going through the gate, and I get to the gate and it's still opened. They're like, "Oh, we don't have any overhead bin space anymore." And I was like, "I have my laptop in here." And then like, well, they're like, "You can take your laptop out." So then I'm like, I get on this airplane. I think I was in a tank top and like my coat. I had to take off my coat because I was so hot, with my laptop in my hands, to only be delayed on the damn fucking tarmac. Sorry, I'm swearing, because there were, I think that week or the week prior, there had been like, or a couple days prior, whatever, there had been like a snowstorm, and which we were delayed, and literally we were on the airplane getting defrosted. I remember seeing people with like the little wand defrosting the freaking airplane. And I'm like, am I taking off? I hope I'm taking off. I didn't even know. And then luckily we ended up taking off. I get here, and by that point, I think by the time I got to my place, like my house, right, I had almost been up for like 24 hours, because England is, I think, 6 hours ahead of us. So it was just a whole process. I remember, and I was like, okay, I woke up at this time. Um, and yeah, I had almost been up for 24 hours by the time I got to my place. Overall, I had a rough time by the end because, mind you, I didn't have a lot of money when I was out there. So like, the money that I was using for like my groceries and stuff like that to live, right? To pay for the stuff that I need for on a daily, right? I didn't make a lot of like friends. And I'm not a big person that goes, once again, extrovert, introvert. So I know that I had my friend, that he came over to a couple of my times to like my place, and we had dinner together, and we went out like the one time to Liverpool, but I didn't really get to do a lot of things. And that's why, like, I kind of mentioned in the episode with Aaliyah, like, that the trip that I took like a couple years ago, even though it was kind of like on the go, was kind of like a makeup to me, because I wanted to be able to explore and spend time. And I'm still looking to do that trip, because that one was still, like I said, on the go, and it was short. It was only like for a week, mind you, and that's with like the traveling days. So yeah, I you know what, I had a good time. Like, I had a great time. I really enjoyed the classes and the teachers that I had. Like I said, I had Dr. Hugh, who was the best. He was just the best. He was just so passionate about his work and teaching, and you could tell. Once again, a little difference a teacher makes, so you could tell. And then I had another teacher. I don't remember his last name, but his name was, I'm gonna say in the American way, Anthony. And then what was the other guy's name? I don't remember, but I just remember he was like a character. I think he was like a Chelsea's fan. And always talking about that. And I remember one time talking about, like, he was asking me for like recipes about, I don't know if it was for, I think it was for like pico de gallo. And we were talking about that. Yeah. So I wrote, like, essentially from that class with him, I wrote a script. I did like a couple projects with Dr. Hewitt's class. But I passed those classes. It's just funny because they took forever to get those like grades. Forever. Like I think I got them in like April. And mind you, I was a graduating student for that May. So it was like emailing them and having to get into contact with them was like a nightmare. I will say this, and I have said this for a while now with like my college journey, is that you have to freaking advocate for yourself for everything. I'm so grateful for the person and the type A that I am, because I just can't even imagine just being like a passive person. So once again, in a foreign country, I was supposed to have an advisor or person like that supposed to be looking out for me, and I met with him once. He sent me an email like 2 months later and was like, how's everything going? Right when almost like the semester's about to finish. And I did let my study abroad people know, and I told them, and I said, listen, I was like, I had an advisor that they supposedly assigned for me. I hadn't heard from him for almost 2 months. I emailed him back. He never responded to me. I was like, nobody is checking on us. It's funny because Rachel was the one that was like, to be honest, she's like, I don't know why Columbia like continues to partner with them, because she's like, if I was them, I would completely cut ties with them because they're terrible. And I told them that, and they wrote me. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're reconsidering whether to continue to work with them." But I like looked. I was like, "Oh," because I had forgotten all this information. I was like, "Let me go look." I think they still work with them, which is fine because. And I didn't even get into this. England, right, or essentially London, was the primary location for a lot of like television and like filming and stuff like that. But essentially, because it was getting a little bit too expensive, what they ended up doing was that they decided to go up north to Manchester. So the University of Salford, one of the buildings, was in Media City specifically for like the TV department. So we had this like beautiful new kind of like newer building, a beautiful area surrounded with like these like studios and stuff could be beneficial for like the students. So I'm like, it would be a shame if they broke a partnership with them. In life you come across like difficult things. I feel the same way as Aaliyah. It's like I feel incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to have been able to do that, because I've always wanted to go to England. I've always wanted to, live abroad, and I didn't think that that was going to happen. And the fact that it did happen, it's a blessing. At the end of the day, I am truly grateful that I was able to do that. And I look forward to once again going back and exploring. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. I would appreciate if you could leave a review, and would be grateful if you could let me know what information resonated with you. Please follow and share on social media. The pages are at Se Vuelve Podcast, or my personal is at Se Vuelve Monica. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Nos vemos pronto. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.